tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday, the 2nd of July, 2024. Milestone: Sri Lanka among the middle-income countries to efficiently complete debt restructuring within a short time frame, says the president.
$5 billion අපිට මේකෙන් ඉතුරු කර ගන්න පුළුවන්.
Slam statements of misinformation pertaining to foreign borrowings and IMF programs. Strengthening ties: Foreign Minister Ali Sabri visits Japan. Talks during the visit to focus on deepening bilateral relations under regional diplomacy. SOE reforms: Government to obtain ADB funding to finance the proposed restructuring of the CEB and privately owned LECO.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
මේ වෙලාවේ රනිල් තමයි.
This is Derana First at 9, live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Sri Lanka's premier primetime English news bulletin, Derana First at 9. I'm Tharindu Mahendra, and in your top story tonight, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that through debt restructuring deals signed with bilateral creditor nations, Sri Lanka will achieve interest savings of $5 billion. Delivering a special statement in Parliament today, the President underscored Sri Lanka's attainment as a middle-income country in its successful navigation of the debt restructuring process. He also addressed misinformation circulating about debt restructuring and related issues, attributing it to individuals aiming to manipulate political narratives for personal gain. Further, he emphasized the government's unwavering commitment to pursuing policies that prioritize national benefits. Parliament convened at the special request of Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena today to provide updates on debt treatment deals signed with bilateral creditor nations last week. During the session, President Ranil Wickremesinghe delivered a special statement.
Last week, we achieved another significant milestone in our challenging journey towards restoring economic stability in a country that defaulted on its debts in 2022. We are proud to be among the middle-income countries that efficiently completed the debt restructuring process within a short time frame, marking a notable achievement. This is promising news. Official bilateral creditors do not typically reduce the principal amount of a loan. Instead, we can secure concessions such as extended repayment periods, grace periods and reduced interest rates. However, some fail to understand this reality and criticize the Sri Lankan government for not requesting a basic debt write-off. Others promise substantial reductions in loan amounts if they come into power. It's important to note that such actions require mutual agreement. Creditors do not comply with unilateral demands. These statements reflect a lack of understanding of international economic systems. We have secured a grace period for principal loan repayment until 2028. Significant reductions have been negotiated in interest rates, now set at 2.1% or lower. The total repayment period has been extended by 8 years, ensuring that our debt will be fully settled by 2043. This flexibility allows us to gradually increase principal repayments and defer loan servicing costs, resulting in Sri Lanka maintaining a debt service of $5 billion. Currently, we are finalizing the restructuring plan for commercial debts totaling $14.7 billion, and discussions are progressing successfully. We expect to complete all of these tasks within a short time frame. Certain political groups have been spreading misinformation about our foreign debt on social media. A supporter of MP Anurkumar Dissanayake falsely claimed that our total foreign debt has risen to $100 billion. The actual figure is $37 billion, and no new loans have been obtained since the default declaration. We have debated with MP Anurkumar Dissanayake and there have been disagreements, but he has not insulted me directly in such a manner. However, some of your supporters are actively working against you. Our international credit rating stood at level B in 2019 and was downgraded to level C in 2020 before the debt default. Credit ratings are influenced by various factors beyond debt solvency, such as economic policies and global economic conditions. Despite challenges, we have achieved several successes leading to improvements in our economic indicators. International financial institutions may consider upgrading our credit ratings based on these positive developments. Some have responded unfavorably to the positive news of debt restructuring. What is the reason for this? Is the success of the IMF program seen as good or bad news? Is it good or bad news that queues of fuel, gas and kerosene have disappeared? Is the reduction of bank interest rates from over 30% to 9% considered good or bad news. Part leaders can safely travel across the country. Previously, this was a risk. Is this good or bad news? I urge those with such pessimistic views to change their mindset for the betterment and future of our nation.
රට වෙනුවෙන් රටේ අනාගතය වෙනුවෙන් ඒ සිතුවිලි වෙනස් කරගන්න කියලා.
මම එක දෙයකට එකඟ වෙනවා.
We acknowledge the difficulty of this task. While discussing this difficult task, it has been claimed that Sri Lanka was among the countries that swiftly completed the debt restructuring process. This is inaccurate. Ghana, Argentina, Ecuador, Belize, Barbados and Chad accomplished debt restructuring before us. Notably, Ghana reduced its loan and interest rates by 37%. Mr. President, you asked whether this news is good or bad. Let me pose a few questions to you. Is the rise of malnutrition good or bad? Is an increase in unemployment good or bad? Is brain drain beneficial or harmful? Is the rise in poverty positive or negative? I urge you, Mr. President, not to politicize the debt restructuring process. Do not jeopardize the well-being of the 22 million people of this country for political gain. Let us not enter into deals that are detrimental to the country due to political agendas.
කියන එකයි මම ජනාධිපතිතුමාට ඉල්ලන්නේ.
බොහොම දේශපාලන වේදිකාවේ කරමු.
පළමුවෙන්ම ආජන්ටිනා ජනාධිපතිතුමා
Regarding Argentina, their president significantly reduced expenses, leading their economy in the right direction. Now he proposes converting to the dollar from the peso and dollarizing the country, despite the IMF's opposition, creating a contradiction. In Ghana, it was President Nana Addo Dankwa, not the finance minister, who achieved their debt restructuring. In our case, our state minister has made progress through discussions. If he wishes to speak with President Nana Addo, I can arrange it. I know him and can even arrange the ticket. You asked whether malnutrition is good or bad. It is unquestionably bad, which is why we introduced initiatives like Asvasum and distributed 10 kilograms of rice for 2 months. That is why our minister introduced a new meal program for students. And poverty, it is undoubtedly bad. This is why we are granting land rights to 2 million people under the Urumia program and providing houses for 200,000 families. Let me ask you this. Was it good or bad to refuse the office of Prime Minister when people were starving?
අගමැතිකම ගන්න නැතුව බය දුවන එක සුබද අසුබද කියලා.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Now, meanwhile, Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri sought the assistance of the Japanese government in digitalizing and upgrading Sri Lanka's judicial administration to address delays in the law. He made this request to the Japanese Minister of Justice during his visit to Japan. Commenting on the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister's visit to Japan, Japanese Minister of Foreign Affairs Yoko Kamikawa said discussions with Minister Sabri would focus on further deepening the bilateral relationship under regional diplomacy. She added that oceans and connectivity will be important themes for the discussion.
In a bid to strengthen bilateral ties between the two countries, Minister of Foreign Affairs President's Council Ali Sabri arrived in Japan for a 6-day official visit. During his visit, the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister called on former Foreign Minister and current Chief Cabinet Secretary of Japan Hayashi Yoshimasa in Tokyo this morning. Taking to X, the minister noted that discussions were held on the vibrant Japan-Sri Lanka partnership and ways to further bolster engagement. Minister Sabri highlighted that the Chief Cabinet Secretary of Japan was briefed on Sri Lanka's latest economic situation and the progress of the debt restructuring process. In response, Chief Cabinet Secretary Hayashi expressed his confidence that Sri Lanka's economy will continue to improve. During another meeting held in Tokyo with Japanese Justice Minister Yuji Koizumi, Foreign Minister Sabri held discussions on enhancing bilateral relations and creating more opportunities for Sri Lankans to contribute to Japan's diverse economic sectors. The Sri Lankan Foreign Minister has also sought Japan's support in digitalizing and upgrading the island nation's judicial administration to address delays of the law. Meanwhile, addressing a media briefing today, the Japanese Foreign Minister commented on the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister's visit to her island.
From today until July 7th, we are going to invite Foreign Minister Ali Sabri of Sri Lanka as an honored guest of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And today, we are going to have the bilateral foreign ministerial meeting. Well, in just 2 months after my visit to Sri Lanka in May, to have the foreign ministers of both countries visit mutually, I think shows the deepening of the bilateral relationship between Japan and Sri Lanka. Furthermore, Foreign Minister Sabuli himself has an experience of participating at the Ships for Youth program that makes me feel the deep bond between the countries. Development of Sri Lanka that belongs to the key position of the Indian Ocean is indispensable for stability and prosperity of the Pacific region as Pacific region as a whole. Against that backdrop, Japan has been strongly promoting the debt restructuring initiative, and at this time we would like to welcome the final agreement being reached on the memorandum on debt restructuring. Against such backdrop, with Foreign Minister Sabuli, we would like to have a discussion on a further deepening of the bilateral relationships. Under the regional diplomacy, which I am promoting, we refer to the ocean and connectivity as an important theme that is shared throughout.
Horizon Campus 2024 intake. Register now.
The government has decided to revise the tariff rates paid for new rooftop solar projects and renewable solar projects through the feed-in tariffs. Accordingly, the revised tariff rates for rooftop solar development and feed-in tariffs will be applied to all new projects with effect from yesterday. According to Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara, a formula was adopted in 2022 by taking the US dollar rate, interest rates and other economic factors into consideration to revise the tariff rates and increase the rates paid for rooftop solar development and the feed-in tariffs for other renewable energy development of less than 10 megawatts. The minister added that the cabinet approved his proposal based on the stakeholder consultations and tariff committee report to revise the rates utilizing the same formula with the current economic indicators and benchmarking rates received on competitive bidding and negotiated tariff projects for CEB in 2024. Accordingly, the rooftop solar tariff for projects of up to 500 kilowatts is 27 rupees and 6 cents per kilowatt hour, while the tariff for projects over 500 kilowatts is 23 rupees and 18 cents per kilowatt hour. Meanwhile, the revised feed-in tariffs for solar will be 25 rupees and 48 cents per kilowatt hour, while 30 rupees and 53 cents per kilowatt hour will be applicable for mini hydro. For wind, the feed-in tariff will be 29 rupees and 86 cents per kilowatt hour, while 52 rupees and 77 cents per kilowatt hour will be applicable for biomass. The minister noted that the said tariff revisions are based on a 20-year flat rate. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the Sri Lanka Export Development Board to enter into a project agreement with the Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs to implement the second phase of the Global Textiles and Apparels Programme in Sri Lanka. By entering into the agreement, Sri Lanka will be able to seek the support of the programme to direct the country's textile and apparel industry towards quality green products by promoting digitisation. With that, let's take a look at other cabinet decisions taken yesterday. On the 26th of June, the Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to allocate 20 billion rupees to implement an investment scheme to re-strengthen the country's enterprise sector. Subsequently, during yesterday's cabinet meeting, approval was granted to utilize 2 billion rupees from the 20 billion rupee allocation to implement a special loan scheme to remove obstacles for women to engage in economic activities. Cabinet approval was also granted to the proposal to obtain $100 million from the Asian Development Bank in order to finance the proposed institutional structural reforming program in the Ceylon Electricity Board and Lanka Electricity Company Private Limited. The funds are being provided by the ADB as per the agreement between the regional lender and the Sri Lankan government to implement a renovation and financial sustainability program in the country's power sector. Meanwhile, in 2016, as per a memorandum of understanding between Sri Lanka and India, the Indian government provided funds to construct 3,000 rainwater harvesting tanks in Jaffna to provide drinking water to the district. The project was slated to be completed in 3 years but was put on hold due to financial and technical difficulties. In 2022, Cabinet approval was granted to extend the project until June 2024 and construct 1,831 PVC water tanks instead of the originally planned ferro-cement tanks. During yesterday's meeting, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal to utilize the remainder of the funds to construct an additional 934 tanks. Approval was also granted to the resolution furnished by the President to further increase the grant amount provided by the US government under the program for a Sri Lanka with democracy, prosperity and the capability to face disasters up to $52.835 million. The resolution was submitted as per the proposal of the United States Agency for International Development. The US government initially granted $9.069 million of financing for the program, and during the year the value of the grant was revised up to $28.299 million. Finally, approval was granted to hand over the management of the Henry Pedri Stadium in Colombo, previously managed by the Colombo Municipal Council, to Isipatana College. The decision was taken in order to more effectively maintain the sports complex so that it can be utilised by the students of Isipatana College as well as other schools in the surrounding area. Now, Samaki Jana Balawega parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva says that the SJB has unanimously decided not to support the establishment of a national government under the incumbent president Ranil Wickremesinghe. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna MP P.L. Nishanta says that the party will officially inform the candidate of the party in the coming presidential election.
I got to know that our group has decided that they are not ready to form a national government because the presidential election will be held in a few months' time. First of all, hold the presidential election in October. The President is talking about ways to manage the debt obtained, delaying the debt to be repaid and obtaining new debt. Both the President and the parties in the opposition have failed to present a plan for resurrecting the country from the debt trap.
මොකද අපිට ගිය පාර අපිට නිවැරදි තීන්දුවක් ගන්න බැරි වෙලා තමයි අපිට මෙහෙම වුනේ. මේ පාරවත් හරියට නිවැරදි තීන්දුවක් ගනී කියලා අපේ බලාපොරොත්තු තමයි වර්තමාන ජනාධිපතිතුමාට පක්ෂයේ සහයෝගය දෙයි කියලා අපි හිතනවා. මාධ්‍යයට තව සතියක් දෙකක් යනකොට දැනගන්නට පුළුවන් වෙයි කවුද ජනාධිපති අපේක්ෂකයා. ඒ වගේම අපි සීළු දෙනා වැඩ කරන්නේ කාටද කියන එක.
2019 ජනාධිපතිවරණේ සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මැතිතුමාට අපි ඔක්කොමලා සහයෝගය ලබා.
All of us supported Sajith Premadasa throughout the 2019 presidential election. We supported him to claim 5.6 million votes. Later, he contested separately under the telephone symbol. His 6.5 million votes were reduced to 2.7 million. This mistake has to be rectified. I believe that members of his party, along with my brother, will join us to support Ranil Wickremesinghe at the appropriate time.
දැන් ජනාධිපතිතුමා ආපු දා ඉඳලම කියනවා අවුරුදු දෙකක් තිස්සේ කියනවා තාම ගිය කෙනෙක් නම් හොයාගන්න නැහැ. හැබැයි ගිය එක්කෙනෙක් එන්නත් අහනවා.
ඔබතුමාගේ මතය කොහොමද ඉදිරියේ තියෙන ජනාධිපතිවරණය ගැන?
අපි ඉතින් අපේක්ෂකේ දාලා බලනවා. ඉන්න ටිකක් අපි තාම පක්ෂයේ තීන්දුවක් අරගෙන නැහැ. නායකයෝ මතුවෙන්නේ ජනතාවගෙන්.
The Colombo District Court issued an interim order revoking the Sri Lanka Freedom Party's decision to dismiss MP Dayasiri Jayasekara from party membership and the position of General Secretary. Last year, MP Jayasekara was ousted from the SLFP with immediate effect and was removed from his position as the party's General Secretary. And then the SLFP chairman, former President Maithripala Sirisena, communicated this to MP Jayasekara in a letter, adding that disciplinary inquiry would also be initiated against the parliamentarian pursuant to the provisions of the party's constitution. However, addressing concerns pertaining to MP Jayasekara's removal, former President Sirisena stated that his party membership was only suspended temporarily, adding that the party was ready to accept the MP as a member of the party. The remains of the late R. Sambandhan were placed in a funeral parlour in Boralla from 9 a.m. this morning, where the public gathered to pay their final respects to the late leader. A number of politicians, including former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, visited the funeral parlour to pay their final respects. The remains will thereafter be taken to the parliamentary premises tomorrow. The remains will lie at the Parliament complex from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Following the public honours at the parliamentary complex, the remains of the late R. Sambandhan will be taken to Trincomalee. The funeral of the late leader is scheduled to be held in Trincomalee on Sunday, the 7th of July. Minister of Education Dr. Susil Premajayantha says the government has paid teachers full salaries even when only 50% of schools operated during the COVID-19 pandemic, and added that the teacher principal strike actions are a disservice to the country's future generation. However, teachers and principals once again launched a protest in front of schools island-wide today in protest of the unresolved teacher-principal salary discrepancy.
On the 26th of June, a protest was launched in Colombo by the teacher principal trade unions demanding the government provide solutions to the salary discrepancies. However, measures were taken by the security forces that day to disperse the protesters. Against this backdrop, a protest action organized by teacher principal trade unions commenced in front of schools at 2 p.m. today to demand the government once again solve their salary discrepancies and to express their objection against the actions of the security forces during the previous protest.
පැහැදිලිවම දරුවන්ට අසාධාරණයක් වෙනවා කියන එක මත තමයි අපි මේ එළියට බැස්සේ දෙකෙන් පස්සේ. එහෙම හිතන්න බැරි හින්දා තමයි ආණ්ඩුව තවදුරටත් මේ ප්‍රශ්න සම්බන්ධව අහුම්කම් දෙන්නේ නැත්තේ. අපි තාමත් ආණ්ඩුවට කල් දීලා තියෙනවා, තව සති දෙකක් තියෙනවා උත්තරයක් දෙන්න.
ළමයින්ගේ අධ්‍යාපනයේ පස්සට යන එක ගැන වග කියන්න ඕනේ ආණ්ඩුව. පාසල් කාලය තුලට මේක එනවා නම් ඒක වගකීම ගන්න ඕනේ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ආණ්ඩුව කියන එකයි අපි කියන්නේ.
Addressing an event held at Temple Trees, Minister of Education Dr. Susil Premajayantha commented on the ongoing teachers' strikes and protests.
Professional rights are important, but they should not be won at the expense of the future generation. Velupille Prabhakaran, who fought against this country for 27 years, never cased schools to close. He didn't disrupt any examinations. Only 50% of schools operated during the COVID-19 pandemic. Foreign countries managed to make up for that time by holding additional classes in the evening. We didn't ask our trade unions if they are ready to work an extra hour after school. I already knew the answer. Even when only 50% of schools were operating, we paid them their full salary. Countries like Greece, that have been bankrupt for 10 years, only pay their government employees 25% of their salary. We have forgotten the past 2 years. If teachers are protesting in front of schools, parents and children will also protest about not receiving a proper education. The people who led these protests should at least know the core value of education. I would like to send them abroad to show them how education systems operate in those countries. Students are priority. If there are no students, there will be no teachers.
Star dishwasher Dali Hell Indul Pahasuwen Sede. Star dishwasher magic tub එක.
Welcome back. Now, domestic gas supplier Gas Lanka announced their revised prices, which is in effect from midnight tonight. This decision comes after Sipetco, Lanka Indian Oil Corporation and Sinopec revised fuel prices for the month. However, Laughs Gas PLC announced that their gas prices will remain unchanged.
According to the latest price revision, the price of a 12.5 kilogram liter gas cylinder will be reduced by 100 rupees to 3,690 rupees. The new retail price of the 5 kilogram gas cylinder will come down to 1,482 rupees, following a price reduction of 40 rupees. Meanwhile, the 2.3 kilogram gas cylinder will be reduced by 18 rupees, bringing the new retail price to 694 rupees. Speaking to media today, Chairman of Litro Mudita Piri stated that gas prices were reduced as a result of the company's structural cost reduction initiatives and efficient stock management.
Even though the global market prices are in the upward trend, the company decided to give a relief to its consumers based on structural cost reduction initiatives and efficient stock management. Gas toge අතිතරම් අපි ඉදිරියටත් ඇනෝම් කරලා තියෙනවා.
We have already placed orders for sufficient gas cylinders. Measures are also in place to secure, manage those orders until January next year. Further, we have observed a significant increase in number of Litro gas consumers. As a result, we expect to increase our orders by 50,000 to 70,000 tons.
අපි වැඩියෙන් ඇනෝම් කරන්න ඉදිරියට කල්පනා කරනවා.
Meanwhile, Laughs Gas PLC announced that their gas prices will remain unchanged. Accordingly, the 12.5 kilogram LAF gas cylinder will continue to be sold at 3,608 rupees, while the 5 kilogram gas cylinder will be sold at 1,477 rupees.
Now, the Colombo Bourse closed in green today as a result of price gains in counters such as Selinco Insurance, Sampath Bank and John Keel's Holdings, with turnover crossing 18 billion rupees. The CSE All Share Price Index closed 0.35% higher at 12,118 points, while the S&P SL20 also settled up 0.23% at 3,574 points. Mixed interest was observed in Nations Trust Bank, DFCC Bank and People's Leasing and Finance, while retail interest was noted in Brown's Investments and SoftLogic Capital. Trading volume on the index was up 61.76 million shares from 32.4 million shares in the previous session. The utilities sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while the banking sector was the second highest contributor. Foreigners remained active, closing as net buyers. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. We'll join you tomorrow at the same time. Thank you. Have a good night.